We are now going to transit into our first panel discussion for today, transfer of knowledge for new tourism clusters and products. The session is going to run for 60 minutes. I'm cutting down on the time because we got up a little bit late this morning, and features panelists from both the industry and of the academia. Please, I would like to welcome the director of EUT, the Spanish Center for New Professions, Tourism University Schools, Spain's, and of course your panel chair for this session, Mercedes Carreño. Mercedes is the president of the Spanish Association of Tourism Schools, member of the Tourism Committee of Madrid's Chamber of Commerce. She's also a member of the board of the Spanish Association of Tourism Professionals, a member of the board of the World Association for Professional Training in Hospitality and Tourism. She is the executive secretary of Ulysses Foundation and the member of the Ibero-American Association of Tourism Professionals. She presents CNMP at the United Nations World Tourism Organization's Knowledge Network, Cluster of Tourism of Galicia, Spain, the Foundation Destino Madrid, and the Association of Family Businesses of Madrid. She's the former vice president of the UNWTO affiliated members, and of course a former member of the UNWTO Program and Finance Committee. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Mercedes Carreño to lead the panel.
So thank you very much, Matilda. I'm very excited to be here today opening these working panels in this wonderful site full of art and history, which is my second passion after tourism, of course. So let me introduce you the panelists who are going to be discussing with me today. So first of all, let me invite you to join me at the stage Roberto Formato, please. Roberto Formato has carried out strategic planning and marketing for public, private, and non-profit organizations for about 20 years. Main areas of research and consultancy include tourism governance and new product development, with a specific regard to sectors such as rural and cultural tourism, where essential is the matching between private market orientation and supply-oriented policies. Currently working at master plans for the development of several cultural locations in Kurdistan, assisted by the Bizzet University in Palestine for the implementation of rural tourism curricula inside its archaeological program. Okay, Leonardo Massa will be with us in 5 minutes, but I will introduce you to him. He is the commercial director of the Mediterranean Shipping Company in Italy, working in tourism for 10 years. Previously worked for 10 years at Fratelli Corsuzli SPA, general agents of airlines and shipping companies, where he started an important process of professional growth, going from sales manager of the Central South to general manager. Joined MSC Cruiser SPA, a world leader in the cruise industry, in April 2005 as Italy Commercial Director. In July 2006, he became Southern Europe Commercial Director, and since September 2010, he's Country Manager for Italy. So, Cristina Mottironi, please, you can join us. Thank you. She's a lecturer at Bocconi University, Italy. Teaches courses on tourism and local development, and is responsible for the area of destination policy and strategy at the Master in Economics and Tourism. A visiting scholar at Temple University, Philadelphia, USA, IFFT member, participant at the TEFI network, and consultant on management and planning issues. Research interests are on tourism destination policy and management, destination competitiveness, and integration between tourism and other economic sectors. A Master in Tourism from Bocconi University and Doctor in Tourism Management from University of Surrey, UK. And the last, but the best, sorry, Fusi Okumus is professor at the Rosen College of Hospitality Management, University of Central Florida, USA. Research areas include strategy implementation, competitive advantage, knowledge management, crisis management, cross-cultural management, destination marketing, information technology, and developing countries. Teaching and consultancy areas include strategic management, leadership development, strategic human resources management, hotel management, and international hospitality management. Widely published in leading journals with over 160 academic publications and over 1,800 citations. Editor-in-chief of the International Journal of Contemporary Hospitality Management and serves on the editorial boards of 17 international journals. So thank you very much and welcome to the panel. So our topic today is transfer of knowledge for new tourism cluster and products, or transfer of knowledge for innovation. So let me tell you, yesterday Dr. Jafari reminded us how big tourism has become, and also that the academia is also very, very big by today, but there are not enough bridges between them. And when we say tourism, we are talking about many sub-industries. And to make it a little bit more complicated, academia approaches tourism from many different scientific areas. Academia creates knowledge and disseminates knowledge, but to talk about transfer of knowledge, we have to think about applying knowledge, or with different words, about decisions. And decisions have to be taken at all levels: companies, organizations, destinations, institutions, governments. Okay, to make it a little bit more difficult again, let me remind you that tourism is still being measured by the demand. This is why it is so sensible to many issues and to many situations that are beyond the control of destinations and industry. Dr. Fayasola has just proposed us a methodology for the Tea Forum. Methodology to help the transfer of STEAM knowledge and the transfer of market strategic knowledge, considering that we live in such a changing world that the future is very uncertain. So let me start the debate with our colleagues. Dr. Mottironi, in your opinion, what are the clues for creation and knowledge transfer at tourism businesses and companies?
I would like to answer using basically 3 keywords that can be seen as innovation drivers, but at the same time a sort of ladder of system creation and knowledge transfer beneficial both for tourism companies and destinations. And my first keyword is connectivity. When we say connectivity in tourism, we immediately think about physical connectivity, of course, and this is paramount for tourism and is defining also new strategies. Let's think about cities, for instance. But mainly, I'm thinking about knowledge connectivity, which means the fact that destinations can facilitate innovation by facilitating connections among internal and external players and knowledge transfer among all those players. I'm thinking, of course, about universities, research centers, entrepreneurs, investors. We know that those connections are very important for knowledge transfer, and we have examples. Let's think about Lisbon, for instance, which is a dynamic tourism destination, but which is also a startup hub. And in Lisbon, we have many interesting new tourism startups nowadays, and in a research we are doing on them, they are telling us in a very consistent way the fact that being located in a dynamic tourism destination is relevant to develop new ideas and to be in touch with market, but it has been essential for them to be in a context, in an environment which has facilitated in any way connections among entrepreneurs, among incubators, and among investors to translate those ideas into entrepreneurship. This leads also to my second keyword, which is networking. Because nowadays is more and more researched the fact that in the intersection between science and technology, very often innovation comes from groups instead of individuals. So we are rethinking, let's say, the eureka moments in individuals, and we are witnessing how it's groups that very often have the power to innovate. And in tourism, formal networks are gaining consensus, not just because they are economically convenient, they can create economies of scope and whatever, of scale and so forth, but also because they are meaningful ways to knowledge transfer on managerial practices which are cutting edge, which are at the frontier, which are about critical issues. For instance, we have nowadays interesting clusters in the field of sustainable tourism, where actually their relevant role is to share knowledge on how to manage in a more sustainable way tourism. Last but not least, the third keyword is about sharing. It's not just sharing knowledge, it's the fact that nowadays innovation is largely demand-driven and technology-driven, and the sharing economy is, of course, one of the most meaningful examples, and in tourism is developing very quickly as well. But sharing is also trust. There's not real sharing without real trust. As a matter of fact, we have, for instance, a very large accommodation group, which is Intercontinental, and Intercontinental is working on the creation of moment of trust as the real cutting-edge strategy for the future. And also destinations can work on trust, in the sense that destinations that are increasing, that are growing in terms of social capital by creating trust within all the players, can be really competitive in providing meaningful tourism experiences. Maybe research is still lacking on this issue, but I think it's a topic that is worth to be studied more in detail. Thank you.
And products, and new products. So I wonder if we really know what we are talking about. So Dr. Okumus, could you please explain us what you understand or what we understand for new clusters and products, please?
Thank you very much. I'm happy to be here. First of all, when we need to first define what cluster is. Cluster is similar businesses coming together and competing based on quality and price, and similar industries or related industries coming together and supporting this industry. So I don't think a new cluster happens overnight. It takes time. For example, I live in Orlando. I work in Orlando for the past 10 years. In the 70s, there was nothing in Orlando. So no tourism, just perhaps wetland and some orange trees, some farms. And what Disney came in, purchased land, built one theme park, and then another one, and other companies came in. Gradually, a tourism cluster started emerging. And then they thought whether Orlando would become a meeting destination, and they added the meeting cluster, a convention cluster later. And they built one of the best convention centers. And later, all these leading hotel companies came in and built hotels. And then leading restaurant chains came and started operating in Orlando. And then space tourism, Kennedy Space Center was closed. So there are several very related tourism clusters emerged, but it didn't happen overnight. If you look at other destinations, for example, I'm originally from Turkey. The tourism industry started in the 80s. It started more like a resort, sea, sand, sun tourism. Now they are moving into more gastronomy tourism, convention tourism, a business tourism. But it takes at least 10 to 20 years to become mature and understand and meet visitors, tourist expectations. So tourism clusters, new tourism clusters you can create, but it takes time. Now in Orlando, for example, Orlando is becoming a medical destination. Just to add whatever we have currently, all these theme parks, meetings, entertainment, wedding, golf. Now Orlando is becoming a medical destination. So it needs a partnership between the hospitality industry and the government sector and other related industries and the universities as well. For example, the University of Central Florida is playing a key role in creating this new medical destination. So we have to work all together, the industry partners, the government officials, and universities, to have a common vision to develop a new cluster. And these new clusters should complement existing clusters and support each other, and they should be linked well. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. Formato, can you share with us an example of new product? What are the desirable scenarios, future scenarios? How to get there?
Okay. Thank you. Well, we started saying that to be successful and sustainable in the long term, a tourist product has to match between demand and supply. But it also has to supply to provide to the broader needs of the society. So we talked in the introduction about environmental contribution, so we can say about the mitigation to greenhouse gas emissions, social contribution to social exclusion, and economic. Coming to economic, we normally talk about local economic benefits, which are, of course, very much important. But we have gone in the last years through this main issue of austerity. We talked in the introduction, which is very much important. So I wondered in the last years, and I would give an example of a product where I found this match. I wonder how tourism can also help to this reduction of public spending. And working on a special product some years ago, it was about active tourism, mainly cycle tourism, I understood how destination that did develop such a product did not only met the increasing demand for experiential tourism, for active tourism, but also matching and supplying to internal demand. They were able to meet the demand for reduction of health spending, since destinations that have developed such, I say, cycle tourism, but more broadly active tourism, would have some way a healthier society. And I would quote some examples which are quite known about Australia, but also some studies in the United States, where we see that the inactivity has a cost, a yearly cost for, it has been quoted in Australia, about 200 Australian dollars, while another study in the US talks about $500 per year. Both. Developing tourism which are active tourist product would not only meet this very well known and recognized trend towards experiential tourism, but also would probably create the conditions for helping health spending reduction. And we have to say about health spending that it is the major cause of the increase of public spending worldwide, because it, of course, related to aging of society. And if we look at the Italian case, for example, that has been very much shocked by the financial crisis, public spending in health has increased by 5% among total expenditure since 1990 to 2008. So new policies to match this increasing spending are very much needed, and I believe that tourism can, by itself, provide and help to this.
Thank you very much. So, as you have seen, we have theory and practice in this panel. So, I'm very happy because we have a representative from the industry with us today. So, I would like to ask you a very simple question. What is your vision about our topic? How it is seen from the point of view of the industry, the transfer of knowledge for new products? Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. Sorry to be a little bit late. For cruise industry, the developing a new destination and innovation is a must. It's not just a need, but it's a real must. I mean, cruise industry worldwide is increased strongly, and the capacity is growing faster than the numbers that the general tourism, general industry is producing. So there is a strong needs of innovation. Innovation in destination, in catching different target, in communicating different way. I mean, if I look at what has happened on the Italian market in the last 10 years, or even in the European market, we can see easily how the cruise industry has grown in double digit for the last 10 years. And it is connected, of course, to the strong investment in new buildings, but I think mainly in the ability of catching clients, prospects that were not thinking about cruising before. And it has been possible with strong investment on one side, but on the other side, the ability of even to generate what I call new market. I mean, it's not a new market. There was a demand that was not catched before. I have a few examples that can easily give an idea of what I'm talking about. For example, till 10 years ago, 15 years ago, speaking of cruising made in winter time was a shame. I mean, all the main company after October, they tended to position their ship in other area of the planet. But 12 years ago, we started, and we believed that there was a market demanding winter cuisine made, that is a product comparable to a village in Tunisia or Sicily. And bottom line, from zero 12 years ago, last year on the European market, we produce more than 250,000 passengers. It means that this is a typical case of destination, communication in the right way, and ability to catch a demand that of course was there but was not catched before. And there are other examples how stimulating niche market with all the technology help that nowadays we have can be another great opportunity for company to improve and grow in the industry. In this case, I have an example that was 2 years ago. We were the winner for an European contest for the use of Facebook in the business as business case. And basically just based on Facebook and social media, we developed a new product, a ship called Ship for Young, that basically was a project developed by students of an important Italian university, Bocconi in Milan. And basically the concept was that the cruise that in the past was as general feeling a product for old people or couple honeymooners could be also a perfect destination, a cruise for young people. So we, with them, with this group of brilliant students of Bocconi, we developed this case that then became a business case, all based on the use of Facebook. And 2 years ago, we had more than 40,000 clients under 26 years old on our ship. This is a case where communication and the right technology can help to develop the products.
Thank you very much. Well, now I'm going to ask you some questions, and I will invite you to interrupt if you feel you can add something to the answer of whoever is answering, okay? So I will start by asking Dr. Mottironi again. Do you think tourism is a conservative industry that reacts slowly to market conditions, trends and demands, rather than getting ahead of them?
Well, I think it depends on the type of reaction, or if we like, the type of innovation we are thinking about. And it is true that we lack analysis of how innovation happens in tourism. So we need to work on this also to answer those type of questions. But in general, I would say that the tourism industry has been conservative as long as the tourism demand has been conservative, but nowadays tourism demand is very dynamic, and I would say that in general tourism operators are much more innovators than in the past.
Thank you. Do you want to add anything?
I think it's difficult to generalize, but I fully agree with her. The problem is most of the innovations, new products, generally came from other industries to the tourism industry, or there were pressures and the organizations in the tourism industry had to adapt those. So I wouldn't say the tourism industry is very innovative, very creative, unless there are major forces and crises and they have to reevaluate their business model and how they work. But yes, we are open to new innovations, but mostly all those innovations came from other industries.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Massa, Do you innovate in your company, or do you think you innovate? What kind of innovation do you do? How do you transfer knowledge in your business?
I think at least we try to innovate it, and we can even do it better, but we try to innovate it. We innovated in many different sides. There is one side, and this is common to even other kind of industry. We innovated on our hardware. Speaking of hardware, for us is our ship. The size, the amenities on board, the impact on the sea. Just to give you an idea, till 15 years ago, the average size of the ship in the ship business was around 700 cabins. Nowadays, the new buildings are around 2,000 cabins. But it's not just a question of size, it's also a question of amenities on board. But innovating on the hardware side, I used to say, is the easiest part. I think back to the question before that our industry is very hard to generalize, so I totally agree with the previous comments. But I think that in general there is a demand in our industry that is very active, very innovative, and tends to innovate constantly, while there are the producers that not always follow this trend. It means that the way to catch clients, the way to communicate about your company, the way to interact with the clients is changed dramatically in the last years, and not necessarily all the players of the industry have followed this change. Back to us, we have changed and we have innovated a lot on the hardware side. We have innovated a lot in the way how we approach and communicate with our customers. And in this area, technology is an incredible help.
Yes. And do you think in businesses it is necessary to register the knowledge that has been created inside the business?
Personally, I think yes.
Yes,
is
okay,
absolutely the need.
Thank you. So let me ask Mr. Formato, what do you think? Why is transfer of knowledge not happening enough fast, or why does it doesn't result in tangible innovation? Why do we have this impression that we are going slowly after the demand? What do you think?
Well, thank you. If I refer to the experience I mentioned before, it is a matter of a whole of government. So tourism is made up by several different actors. You have public, private actors. Some of these are very innovative, as we have seen. But if we turn to government organization, maybe it's a little bit less, but not because a government organization by themselves are less innovators, but tourism is very much fragmented as a competence in public organization. So tourism would be a matter of if we look at Italian regional governments, but also a government worldwide, would be a matter of agriculture. If we talk about rural tourism, it's a matter of natural parks environment. If we talk about mountain tourism or natural park tourism, it's also a matter of Department of Transportation. So in many cases, tourist department have just a little share of this of the total tourism innovation. And if I refer to the example I gave before, which is about starting a strategy for increasing active tourism whilst also targeting the spending in health. This would be probably a strategy that has been made by by the central government, by the central regional government, and putting together all the different departments. And this is very much difficult for political reasons, for practical reasons of daily operations, and so on.
Mm-hmm. So, Dr. Okumus, do you think businesses or institutions share their knowledge?
Universities, yes, they try. But if you look at major corporations, for example, we have one in Orlando, Disney, they don't share anything whatsoever. They keep everything to themselves. And even when an employee starts working, they make that employee sign a paper that any idea he or she has or anything she or he will develop will belong to Disney and will not share with others, and they have the copyright, trademark, whatever. And if you look at other organizations, leading hotel companies, airlines, they compete with each other and they don't like sharing their knowledge. But on the other hand, if you really look at the knowledge management theory, it starts with an individual. It's all about tacit knowledge. How you cook, how you serve your customer, how you process information. And sorry, it's up to me or the organization whether I like to share or not. Within an organization, they share their knowledge. For example, if you look at Ritz-Carlton, they have a software, they call it Mystique, and any customer comes to their hotels, they put down all the information, what kind of room, pillow, food, habit, everything. And when the customers visit other hotel units, they know exactly their birthday, their food preference, their pillow preference, and everything. But they don't share this knowledge even with other brands, perhaps. So this is kept inside, confidential. And it's, as I mentioned, knowledge creation starts with an individual. It's all tacit knowledge. And organizations should develop some procedures, some software, some mechanisms to store this knowledge, this tacit knowledge, so their team members will learn and the organization will learn and they can transfer this, store this, and reevaluate. But it doesn't happen very often. In terms of organizations sharing their knowledge with other organizations, I don't think it happens very often. Unless they have informal friendships, they talk over or they attend conferences, but mostly because they compete with each other, knowledge is their competitive advantage, they wouldn't like to share, just to be honest. But universities, we like to share, but what we write is quite boring. All the articles and books, unfortunately. And industry managers, when they read the first 2 pages, they are already sleeping. So we don't codify, we don't summarize what we try to say, and they don't read unless they are our master's students or undergraduate students. They have to read to pass. Otherwise, I don't think organizations share their knowledge. And governments also, I mean, how far they share their knowledge or they have vision, that's questionable, and it depends on the country and destination. Thank you.
So, thank you. And while talking about sharing, Dr. Mottironi has mentioned the sharing economy, and a new debate is starting between businesses in the industry about the sharing economy. What do you think? Is it good for the tourism industry, or is it going to damage the industry?
Sorry, I didn't get
Yes, sharing economy. This is a new issue, a new debate, at least in Spain. Everybody is talking about sharing economy and how it is going to affect the industry. I'm not going to give my opinion, but just I wanted to ask you if you think these new ways of sharing economies, I'm meaning not being invited, but we can find a place to eat, which is a normal house with a normal family, and we will have to pay for it. This is not for free. They are not inviting us to their home. They are just giving us a meal, exactly in the same as if we were in a restaurant. And this is happening with lodgements. I mean, hotel directors and the industry, the whole industry is really worried about this. We can now book in internet a room in a house, in a family house. We pay for it. And they are not hotels, they are just sharing economy. So what do you think about this? Is this a problem for the industry, or is it an opportunity for the industry?
Well, yeah, it's a trend which is growing in tourism as well.
It's not working.
It is a trend that is growing in tourism as well. If we go and see how many new sharing apps or whatever have grown in the last 6 months, they have more than doubled just in the sectors connected with tourism. Of course, this answers to requests that comes from the demand to a certain sense can be a way, for instance, to share knowledge, to share local knowledge with global demand and so on. But at the same time, it is true that it creates a problem of competition in terms of prices, in terms of rules which have not been written yet in most parts of the world for this type of companies. So it is by no means a trend which is impacting tourism and which is creating also competition issues for, let's say, traditional tourism companies.
Do you want to add anything? No. Okay. Sorry, Mr. Formato, you have said many of the innovation in tourism comes from different science. In many countries, tourism is not considered a science. What do you think? Should we work, or do we have to change the situation? Should we work to implement tourism as a science itself to favorize the transfer of knowledge? Or do you think it's okay as we are now?
Well, this is a very quite difficult question. I mean, I said tourism has so many different components. I think it is very important to build up on the experience of companies and to provide products which are to start to work with them in order to provide with them products which are both beneficial to companies, but also sustainable, as I said, in the long term, and having in mind these broader needs of society. When I think about the products I was speaking before, which are about health tourism, reducing public budget, I think they are still, in the mind of some people, but I do not see that much in concrete implementation, but for some countries that I've mentioned. So I think there's, yes, we have to build much more knowledge about this, but also to keep in mind that companies have to make their best out of this. So.
Thank you. So now a question for the two professors, Okumus and Mottironi. Are we educating for creativity? Very short question.
Well, again, it is difficult to give a general answer to this, so I can go back to my personal experience and the experience of my institution, which is Bocconi University. And I think we are investing on this. We believe that our students must be creative, but in the sense that they must be able to solve problems. We do this in different ways, in the way we teach, in the way we expose our students to external conditions. And an example can be the one that was given by MSG. And it's a way we work with our students. We try to set problems with companies and with organizations and institutions, and then we ask our students during their courses to work mainly on developing projects, but not in the sense of just doing analysis, but much more in the sense of solving problems. And this process is a way that is very valuable for them to be more creative. And generally, it has also a positive reaction from companies and institutions which are involved in those type of educational programs.
This is a very interesting question. I was born and educated in Turkey. I don't think they teach creativity at in schools, but the life was so hectic, or has been very hectic and challenging, and by nature you learn to live in a crisis mode, and that makes you creative and keep fighting, keep going. Then I did my master's and PhD in England. I thought it was creative yet very traditional, not supporting creativity that much, schools and the environment. I lived in Hong Kong for 2 years, and because of culture, it's difficult to express your opinions freely, and it doesn't, perhaps I may be wrong, but it doesn't encourage you to take initiatives and take risks. So by this, you don't take risk, and there is no creativity or limited creativity. More perfecting, doing a good job. So for the past 10 years I live in the United States. Yes, there is some creativity, but on the other hand, students don't like to be challenged. They are very comfortable, and some of them are very creative, full of confidence, but on the other hand, they don't like to work very hard. I don't know, other countries' students may be similar, but that's the situation. Again, it is difficult to generalize. We have wonderful students, very creative, always thinking outside the box. But I will say for the hospitality and tourism education, there should be some courses like entrepreneurship, or in certain courses, we should cover creativity. Moving to organizations, to be creative, your managers and the company structure and culture should allow you to make mistakes. To be creative, you have to experiment things, you have to take risks. But if you make mistakes and use companies' resources and nothing is coming out, there is no creativity, no new product, then you are out the door, you lose your job, and it's very damaging. So sometimes we are pushing, like, don't take any risk, be consistent, don't try anything silly. So that is kills the creativity. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So we are coming short of time. So let me ask just one more question. I was going to ask you about the kind of innovation we were applying, but I think this is going to be too long. So at the end, my question is going to be very simple. To everybody, are we prepared for the future? Who starts?
Who starts?
Okay, you go.
Well, I think the future is we have to face. I would stick to this financial problem, because really it is a big issue, and I think that tourism cannot stay just out of that. We mentioned austerity at the beginning, and we said also that innovation has to come from, in a certain way, from the public sector, since it has this such a long time for returning of investments, but also we have seen that public spending is shrinking really everywhere. So I think that we have to keep this in mind. I think that this is part of tourism that maybe has been somehow neglected, maybe because I studies both in tourism and both in public management and financial management, especially applied to public sector, and also worked for public organizations. So I think this is really an issue. And thank you.
Thank you.
Of course, to give only the time will give you the answer to your question. But I can tell you what us as company are doing to prepare ourselves to the next future. We have an investment plan, an industrial plan 2017-2022 that in 5 years will invest more than 5 billion euro in new buildings. And our hospitality will basically grow in double digit, and we will move from the actual 40,000 bed nights per day to 80,000 bed nights per day. So we think there are still a lot of opportunity out there in the market. There are clients and cluster to catch, and we are strongly invested. That is part of the way how we are preparing ourselves. Then I will just add one thing. I totally agree that, as the professor before said, the knowledge in a company that does not make any particular investment in product or software, the knowledge, the way how to make it is a real advantage in competition. So I think that sharing it with other companies, it's really hard. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Well, I think that if we are here is because we think we are not ready enough for future. So we still need to invest on this. And I think that one aspect that is very important for instance, the academia perspective is to understand a little better, not just how to bridge academia, companies and stuff, but how to interpret innovation in tourism industries. In my mind, we use a lot of frameworks which are not part of the tourism industry. So in order to understand the process of knowledge transfer and innovation, we also need to reframe a little our perspective, maybe.
Thank you very much. I think we are not ready, and we will never be ready. But if those destinations who are aware of the situation and look at their products and clusters and develop new clusters and keep working as a team and develop one vision and work collectively, all organizations, government organizations, universities, and the industry, they will survive. But those destinations, they will, if they don't upgrade their current clusters, if they don't develop new products, new services, they will not survive. Because there are so many new destinations and new products, new services, and the technology is shaping everything, new business model. So it's all about keep going and updating, getting better, and developing new clusters. Thank you.
Thank you. So thank you very much. I think we have to cut this discussion now. So I would like to thank the organizers for the invitation to come here, and of course to thank you very much for your interest.
All right. Please give them a hand. You can just remain on this stage. You know, being the MC, they make you the bad guy at the end of the day because you need to keep on the program. So I would like, you have seen our panelists for this morning, all right? Please take this conversation further during lunch. I would like to thank Mrs. Carreño and the panelists for the discussion and for speaking to us and sharing your insights specifically on transfer of knowledge. At this time, I would like to invite Mercedes again,